ఇదంబ్రామ్యంకు స్వాగతం. గురు అనుగ్రహం తీసుకోవడము, గురు చరణములో ఉండడము, గురు చెప్పిన విధంగా జీవితాన్ని గడపడం అంటే చాలా ఉత్తిష్టమైన జీవితం అని మనం భావిస్తాం. మరి అలాంటి గురువు జీవితంలో ఉండి దేశోద్ధరణ కోసం, ధర్మోద్ధరణ కోసం సర్వం త్యాగం చేసి ఒక సన్యాసిగా మారిపోయని చెప్పతే ఎంతమంది మన వాళ్ళల్లో ఒప్పుకుంటారు? ఎందుకనంటే దేశం కన్నా మించిందేది లేదు, దేహం కన్నా దేశం గొప్పది, దేవం కన్నా దేశం గొప్పది అని చెప్పిన సద్గురు శివానందమూర్తి గారు ఆశీస్సులు, స్ఫూర్తి, అనుగ్రహం అందరికీ ఎప్పుడూ ఉండాలని కోరుకుంటున్నాం. ఆ కోరిక వెనకాల ఇంకొక మాట కూడా ఉంది. కోరికగానే కాకుండా వివేకానందుడు మళ్ళీ పుట్టాలి, కానీ నా ఇంట్లో కాదు పట్టింట్లో పుట్టాలి అని అనుకునే వాళ్ళ సంఖ్య కూడా ఉంది. సో ఆ కోరికే అందరూ బాగుండాలి, దేశం బాగుండాలి, ధర్మం బాగుండాలనే కోరిక ఒక రూపాన్ని గనక మనం చెక్కినట్టయితే, దిద్దినట్టయితే ఎలా ఉంటుంది అంటే గురువు అనుగ్రహం ఎలా ఉంటుందో ఈరోజు మనం తెలుసుకుందాం. మనతోని మహారాష్ట్రలోని సిద్ధనాథ్ ఆశ్రమం నుంచి పూజ్యులు, పెద్దలు చైతన్య స్వామి వారు మన దగ్గర ఉన్నారు. గురు అనుగ్రహం ఎలా ఉంటుంది? అతి చిన్న వయసులో వీరు సాధారణంగా అయితే 29, 30, 40 సంవత్సరాలకి ఒక కారు కొనుక్కొని, బంగ్లా కొనుక్కొని, విల్లా కొనుక్కొని పిల్లలతో సుఖంగా ఉండాలని అనుకుంటారు. కానీ దేశం పరమావధిగా భావించి, ధర్మమే పరమావధిగా భావించి ఇవన్నీ పక్కకు పెట్టి దేశం కోసం, ధర్మం కోసం పోయేవారు చాలా తక్కువగా ఉంటారు. మరి అలాంటి చైతన్య స్వామి వారు సిద్ధనాథ ఆశ్రమం నుంచి ఈరోజు మన ఇదంబ్రామ్యంలో రావడం ఒక పండగ వాతావరణం అనే చెప్పాలి. ఎంతోమంది యువతకు ఎన్నో ప్రశ్నలు. నేను పూజ ఎలా చేయాలి? నాకు ఆఫీస్కి వెళ్ళాలి. నేను దేవుడికి ఎలా దండం పెట్టుకోవాలి? నాకు ఆఫీస్కి వెళ్ళాలి. నేను గుడికి ఎలా వెళ్ళాలి? నాకు చాలా పనులు ఉంటాయి కదా, ఇవన్నీ ఎక్కడ కుదురుతుంది? ఎన్నో సమస్యలుగా భావిస్తుంటారు. ఇవన్నిటినీ తృణప్రాయంగా పక్కకు పెట్టి ధర్మం వైపు ఆలోచించాల్సిన అవసరం ఉంటుంది. అది సాధ్యమవుతుందని ఈరోజు స్వామివారి మాటల్లో మనం అడిగి ఎన్నో విషయాలు తెలుసుకుందాం. నమస్కారం స్వామి. స్వామి, there's a lot of thought process which comes for a person who crosses around 25, 35 or say 40 years of age, because in India we say that's the age of settlement. Now when I say the age of settlement, it is a state of settlement of financial and economic pomp. Now you come from the same dharmic traditions, the country where dharma was the main priority from then till now. Now I wish to place a question at your humble feet for the youngsters to know, at the young age of around 25, 29, what was the driving force that told you that it's not the car, it's not the bungalow, it's not the children, it's not anything, but it's the dharma and the dharma alone. And the country is the embodiment of all these things. Let us travel across the country. What was the driving force that led you into this path, Swami?
I would not say there is one driving force. Aren't we so lucky to born in this great nation, in this great Rashtra? I'm thankful that I'm born in this one of the best planets and in one of the greatest, best Rashtra ever. What inspires me? There are many things which inspires me. There are many incidents in my life which inspires me. But what inspires me more is my Rashtra. The moment we are born, what do we see first? We see the Rashtra. The moment when we close our eyes in our day-to-day life or in the dignified exit of our life, we need to go inward. The Shiva is inside all of us. The supreme consciousness, the transcendental consciousness is in every single being. We all are divine. Tell me one country in this world, or tell me, has there been any country which has existed since the beginning of this great Akhanda Rashtra, who has said, there is Devatva in you, there is Devatva in that dog, there is Devatva in that tree, there is Devatva even in the insect, and there is Devatva even in the every single grain of a sand. This is the great Rashtra. This is that great philosophy. This is the great teachings of our ancient rishis, munis who have existed from time immemorial. These teachings have not just come down to us, they are present in us always and ever. Genetically, they are always there in us. So I don't feel that inspiration has come somewhere from outside. The inspiration has come somewhere from inside through the Atmic forces. We all are sleeping today, I felt. Not just sleeping in a sleeping sense. Adhyatma. We say Adhyatma, the first witnessing consciousness, or the Sakshi Chaitanya, the Chetana, or the consciousness. Even if we are sleeping, the consciousness will never sleep. But today, the society is drifting down. The society is drastically coming down. It is only and only the Dharma, the Sanatan Dharma, which has protected this nation for many thousands and thousands of years. It is our great culture, it is our great Susanskriti, which has conjoined, which has protected, which has given shelter to many other civilizations in the world. Many civilizations in the world have disappeared, erased from the history books, or even from the minds of the humans. But this is the only Sanskriti, this is the only great civilization which has survived for many lakhs and lakhs of years. Today, if I say lakhs of years, some historians will catch me. What is the proof? But I ask them, what is the proof you have? They can have many scientific proofs to date our history. We do not know, it might go to many lakhs of years. Then you have some Westerners, History Channel or those, when they see some magnificent temples, they'll say, this is not constructed by humans. It cannot be constructed by humans.
Correct.
Some aliens have done. No, sir, not aliens. Our Sanatani Dharmis, our great minds, our genius Hindus have constructed it. These genius people have not just come in some thousands of years. They have been on this planet. Today, scientists and great thinkers and visionaries have cognitive boundaries. We have certain cognitive boundaries or cognitive closure where we cannot think after a particular boundary.
Correct.
But our sages, our Rishi Munis, our Vedic Rishis could see things beyond those boundaries, transcendentally. This is the great land. Tell me, where do you find this? And so what inspires me? Every single sand and grain of this soil, of this Akhanda Bharat inspires me. This great Shastras inspire me. My Rishi Munis inspire me. My teachers have inspired me. I'll tell you a short incident. When the Greeks started adventure of controlling the lands, of capturing and invading all the lands to become the Bhupati, Bhunaresh, which was a failure, or it never happened in his life. He died miserably. But when he came to this great Akhanda Bharat land, or Bharata Bhumi, he saw, do we really need to attack them? They are so civilized, they are so advanced. We could not even compete them in the warfare system. We could not even pierce them inside. How this nation is, how these things are. They are so advanced. The medicine is advanced. The artisans, the artists, everything you have in this country, the philosophy, the literature, logic, and everything. His guru was Aristotle, the Greek philosopher. But when he said, "You please go and learn what is there in this country," so Alexander sent some teams of missionaries and a lot of learned scholars to go and see this nation. What is there in this nation? So just go and see what happens in the court. How are the people operating? How is the administration happening? Are people having fights in them? Is there a crime situation? How are they handling this administration? Go and check. So Megasthenes and many philosophers and great kings of those Greek, they came in India. They started visiting different courts. They said, "Is there any case in your court? We want to see how you people administer a case." And to the greater surprise, there is not a single case in this country. So after some days, he was bored. What is this? How are they operating so smoothly and peacefully? We have failed miserably. We are not able to handle this small bunch of army. How are you able to do so smoothly? What is that which has kept this Indians, the Hindus, intact? So when he came, there was one case presented in the court of a Maharaja. The case was between two people. One is the landowner and one is the person to whom the land is sold, a farmer. So suddenly while plowing, the farmer finds a big pot of treasure with lot of gold, this, that. So he says, he goes back to the owner, says, "We have found treasure, I think it belongs to you. Please take it." The landowner is saying, "No, I cannot take it. Since the land is sold to you, I cannot take it. It belongs to you. Whatever you plow, whatever you yield, all is yours." He says, no, I cannot take it. I cannot accept it. And then there is a fight between these two people. Imagine, can this become a reason to fight? So finally this fight goes to the court, to the king's court. And the king has to decide. So when Megasthenes and these Greek philosophers and people who came and sat down in the courts and saw this judgment, they were surprised. This is our Bharat. This is my Akhanda Bharat. So every single instance, the history, the Vedic Shastras, the yoga, the Dharma Shastras, the Veda Shastras, they inspire me. I'll tell you another incident which inspired Shankaracharya in his knowledge. I don't know whether people know it or not. Shankaracharya at a very small age was seeing a man stealing coconuts from a tree. And those days, the Nastika Darshana were at the peak. The Jaina, Bauddha and various different philosophies were at the peak. People started liking those philosophies because you had very short principles, short formulas to understand them. Veda Shastra is like an ocean. One drop also, if you take it, your life will be, it's like achieving moksha.
Yes.
So this thief is stealing coconuts. So the owner sees from far, somebody is in the farm and stealing some coconuts from the coconut tree. This is somewhere in the Kaladi in the Kerala region. So he comes, he instructs him, "You please stay there. Don't come down, I'm going to punish you." So Shankaracharya is slowly seeing from behind. What is he going to punish? I'm going to see it. So he comes with a big bag of grains and all. He brings some vegetables and some food and all for him. He says, "Now you come down. Take this food. You should have asked me, I would have given you. Now the punishment is, if possible, please work on this farm. I will keep giving you this food." See the jurisprudence, even today's courts, today's law, or the students who are studying law and legal, they are getting in legal professions, you need to study the Bharatiya jurisprudence. What advanced jurisprudence, the law system we had, based on compassion, based on Maitri, based on Karuna, based on Mudita. It is based on our Dharma, it is based on our Sanatan Dharma. This is the greatness of Bharatiya Dharma Shastra. This is the greatness of our Sanatan Vedic Dharma. And this has also somewhat influenced Sri Adi Shankaracharya. Like this, many stories, many granthas, my mother would sit down and recite me Ramayana, many Itihas and Puranas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and various different Grantha Shastras, Vedic Shastras. I would sit from my childhood, sit with my grandmother, sit with my mother and father, hear the stories. These small stories have inspired me. My great kings of this Bharat have inspired me. Their lifestyles have inspired me. The Manusmriti has inspired me. Swami Vivekananda has inspired me. This body has expiry date, 20, 100, 70, whatever. How long I am going to carry this? But the thing is, we feel we will carry it, we'll enjoy. And the cycle goes on and on. There is no end to the competition.
Correct.
You know, there was one nice proverb, somewhere I've read it. What is needful in life, you achieve that. Who has given these targets to us? I mean, what is need, you achieve that. That is what the proverb is. But when the need becomes the greed, and when the greed becomes the need, it's a loop. India was so rich, yet they were not attached to the wealth. For around 1200 years, many invaders, tell me one country which has not looted India. Every single country on this earth has looted India. And when that loot was almost coming to the end, then came the Britishers. They looted for another 300 years continuously. Still this country had so much wealth. But the wealth is not metals, gems, diamonds, or the material wealth. The wealth is spiritual wealth. The wealth is intellectual wealth. The wealth is our sciences, our Vedic sciences, our Vedic wisdom. The wealth is our strong urge for moksha. That is the wealth for we Sanatanis. And nobody can steal it. My greatest debt, when I took birth on this great land, is towards my Rashtra first. We always say, when you open your eyes, see Rashtra. When you close your eyes, you must meditate. That's it.
Namaste Swamiji, my name is Pranit. My question is that you are practicing Sanatana Dharma Hinduism for years. So I'm also excited to practice every day, but I find a little bit distraction and all these things. But I want to practice every day, every second. I know it's possible because I have experienced, but somewhere I feel a little bit gap, but you're practicing every day. So I want to know a few things which makes us consistent in this process, where I can feel more joy, where I can work more with the same intention.
In Sanatan Dharma, all these principles are enlisted in very brief. They've also told, if you practice this, then what happens? So they have given multiple truths. You can take one truth and practice. There is no end. Just like you breathe, you don't stop to breathe, right? That is Sanatan Dharma. Dharma means righteousness. See, when I said Dharanat Ityu Dharmaha, Dharma is that which is holding everything together. For example, I have this book in my hand. It is a solid compound. It is a solid. There is some compounding atoms and molecules. It is all connected to each other. Intact. Everything is interconnected. Everything is intact. It is not liquid. It is not gaseous. So everything is connected. So that which connects is Dharma. So what is the Dharma of this when we say? When we say, what is the Dharma of this water? To quench thirst. What is the Dharma of this phone? To communicate. So everything has a dharma, everything has an attribute, everything has a guna. Dharma has got many facets, there are many sides of it. what you call as dharma. But dharma is satya. Dharma is only satya if you see. All Rishi Munis are only finding that ultimate truth. So one person found one truth, he said this is a satya. Then there is another Rishi saying this is a satya. Satya kept changing. Finally they said there should be one satya. And then what is that param satya? Then satya is parabrahma, the cosmic consciousness which connects all of us. The consciousness is there in you. The consciousness is there in you. It is there in this. It is there in that camera also. It is there in that, every object will have certain energy. That principle is governing this whole universe. That is Sanatan. That will never end. That is the dharma. Our dharma is like that. So, there is nothing to practice. You are already practicing it. The moment you start seeing things, observing things like Sakshi Chaitanya, you know what is Sakshi Chaitanya? The Atma. Atma never gets involved in anything. If somebody is doing some murder, will you go and, oh, chalo, I'll also contribute? No. Atma is like that. He is always back. He is observing everything, but he never gets involved. The mind might get involved. The 5 sensory organs might get involved. But the Atma will never get involved. The Sakshi Chaitanya will never get involved. Our Sanatan Dharma is that. If you are Atma, if you are Shanta Nitya Chaitanya Atma, will you do anything wrong in life? If you consider him as Shiva, if you consider him as Atma or Parabrahma, will you go and kill him? No. Will you go and hurt anyone? Will you go and steal anyone's wealth? No. When you consider everyone as same Shiva Chaitanya or Chaitanya, we cannot hurt anyone, we cannot damage anyone. That is Sanatan Dharma. Understanding that highest truth. And once you understand that highest truth, you execute on that path.
Swamiji.
Namaste.
My name is Sri Charan. I'm preparing for civil services exam. So, being a civil aspirant, in civil services exam pattern, they may ask about the Constitution of India. They may ask about the polity. They might ask the ethics. But exactly since independence, before independence also, thousands of officers were entered into the services, still now also. So exactly how administration should confine to the Dharma?
Do the directive principles,
Yes.
or do the fundamental rights give you that freedom to practice your religion? You need to ask this first question. Do they give you total freedom to practice your dharma? We need to ask the question. Today, we need to ask this question to the great scholars of constitution, not only of India but even abroad also if needed, because this constitution is not just an Indian constitution, it is more a borrowed constitution. If you see the constitution of Ireland, the constitution of England and various different countries have contributed to the current modern our Indian constitution. So the first thing we need to ask, are these principles aiming for universal peace? Are they aiming for universal harmony? Now, what is happening in constitution? We are talking of everyone's rights. But in the constitution there is also one word that sometimes makes me think. The word is secularism. Right? So we Sanatanis, who are naturally born secular, secularism which has been planted in the constitution, we need to define what is exactly that secularism. We Hindus are naturally secular. We do not go and harm anyone. We respect everyone. We love every being. We have protected our nation and we have taken Shastra also when it needed.
Yes.
We have taken the support of our Shastras also and the Shastras also to protect the Shastras and the Dharma, the Deva Desha Dharma. So what is this new word, the new definition? We need to define this word secularism. So are the officers free today to express themselves? We need to ask this. Tomorrow if we'll go in an interview, if they will ask, will you be able to express? Because our constitution guarantees freedom of expression. So we need to really question, do we really have freedom of expression? And then if we Sanatanis express, then you have some so-called self-labeled liberals, self-labeled intellectuals who will say, no, this is wrong. You are very rudimentary, you are very backward, and no, you are a fascist, you are a narcissist. They'll label, I don't know, some misogynist, this word, that word, some big gimmick words they'll label, and then they'll not allow you to speak. So where is that freedom of expression? The dharma should become the constitution. Imagine when you say, even in the Yoga Sutra or in the Yoga Shastra, you have ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha. Even if our constitution and every school, if they ask to practice these 5 principles, the crime will end in this universe. If I ask you to say truth, if I ask you to every day to speak truth, you will not do any corruption, you will not go and cheat anyone. If you will say, sir, this is my product, if you want to take it, this is the reality of this product, or this is the reality of my services, nobody has to do any advertisement. If it is very truthful, everybody will come and purchase. But today what is happening, consumerism has entered in India very badly from the foreign lands today. Today is the invasion of consumerism. Today is the era of consumers. So they will plant some new ideas in your mind. They will hypnotize you to purchase some service, hypnotize you to purchase some products, and they'll make you to purchase it. If you do not purchase, they'll create artificial wars, such wars which are happening for buying the weapons, oil, this, that. These wars are happening for this. Because you need to buy it. The consumers have to continuously buy. So someone else's pockets are always full. So consumerism has ended. So, but if you speak truth, it will end. Ahimsa. Such beautiful thing it is. Not just harming anyone physically, but I cannot harm anyone even mentally, psychologically. I cannot harm anyone even verbally. That is ahimsa. Means kaika, manasika, vachika. I cannot harm anyone by these 3 forms. Same thing is with satya. When you say satya, is not just by words. Even your actions must reflect satya. Even your thoughts must reflect satya. This is satya. Then is ahimsa. Asteya, non-stealing. Never take that which is not given to you. That itself will end all the crime. The politicians will become, truthful. They will not take money which does not belongs to them. Asteya means do not take that thing which is not given to you. Do not take that thing which is not permitted to you or not donated to you. So when they are quietly stealing it, taking it without people's information, so that will end if you practice asteya. Now comes the thing which is brahmacharya. There are rapes. Things are happening in physical form, but in mental form many things are happening, right? Verbally people are gossiping all, which are not things to be gossiped. The gossips, that is also, the infringement of brahmacharya. So brahmacharya has to be again practiced kayika, manasika and vachika. Then comes aparigraha. Not to over collect anything. Have limited collection. Do not accumulate anything. Constitution is not just about talking a right of this and that, but our Bharatiya constitution, the Vedas, are giving rights to everyone. They are giving rights to women, they are giving rights to children, they are giving rights to even the LGBT, whatever you call as transgenders or third gender. They are giving rights to every being. They are giving rights to trees, they are giving rights to animals, they are giving rights to the lands also, they are giving rights to the Panchamahabhuta also. Today we are talking of human rights, but what about human responsibility?
Correct.
What about human responsibility? We don't have responsibility towards the nature. We don't have responsibility towards our dharma, our dev, desh. So the responsibility is missing. We should, rather than rights, we should also question what about human responsibility towards the universe where we are living in this place. This constitution is still an alien constitution for us. Somewhere these laws are more of Britishers, which are trying to create the babus, the servicemen.
Correct.
our Bharatiya constitution means our Vedas are not trying to create a Babu. It is trying to create a superhuman, a higher evolved human being from an animalistic nature to the highest spiritualistic nature. That is the greatest constitution of our Sanatana Vedic Dharma, of our Bharata Bhumi. That constitution we must take to all of. And I urge all officers, all Supreme Court lawyers, all Supreme Court Chief Justice or Justices, different judges must at least once in their lifetime study the Vedas before you give judgment. Because our judgment in our Sanatana Dharma is on the basis of compassion, on the basis of reformation. We believe in reformation. We believe in change. If somebody has done a crime, we give you a chance to change.
Correct.
But there is also Danda Niti.
Yes.
There is also a big segment, a big list of books or shastras or scriptures which different punishments are given, how they are to be given, and how the society has to be molded and influenced by those punishments. Punishments are not to harm you, but to shape you. So the society understands the dharma. When you are on the adharma track, if you see Mahabharata and Ramayana, why did Ramayana occurred? Why did Mahabharata occurred? It was to establish dharma. If you see Mahabharata, a great war between crores of people happened.
Yes.
For whom it happened, sir? It happened for the modesty of one woman.
Woman, absolutely.
Sati, Draupadi's modesty was challenged, and great kings from different parts of the world came and fought one war to sustain dharma back to the society. For whom? Because we respect women, we Sanatanis respect women, and we will fight. And that fight has occurred, that is Mahabharatam. Ramayana occurred again for the modesty and respect of the Mata, the Sati. That is Ramayana.